Good morning, everyone. Have you ever noticed how much energy we waste being upset over things we cannot control? How often do we allow someone else's words, actions, or even their mood to dictate our peace of mind? Imagine living a life where no one could disturb your calm, where your inner joy remained untouched by criticism, anger, or negativity. Today, I want to share with you the secret of achieving exactly that. How to never get angry or bothered by anyone. Anger is not an involuntary reaction. It is a choice we make, often unconsciously, in response to circumstances or the behavior of others. Many of us have experienced moments when someone's words or actions provoke an intense surge of irritation. A feeling that seems almost automatic. Yet, if we pause and examine closely, we realize that the initial spark of anger is just a signal, a moment of awareness. What we do with that signal determines whether it consumes us or passes through without leaving a mark. The first step in mastering this is acknowledging that no one has the power to make us angry unless we allow them to. People may provoke, frustrate, or criticize, but they cannot dictate our emotional state unless we hand over control. By consciously recognizing that our responses are under our authority, we reclaim personal power that many unknowingly surrender. Choosing calm over anger requires practice, awareness, and deliberate intention. Often, anger stems from attachment to a specific outcome, attachment to our expectations, or attachment to how we believe others should behave. When reality does not align with these expectations, the mind feels threatened and interprets this as a reason to react defensively. However, understanding the transient nature of circumstances allows us to detach from the need to control everything. By observing situations objectively, without judgment, we can interrupt the automatic chain reaction of emotional response. For instance, when someone speaks harshly or acts thoughtlessly, rather than immediately reacting, we can recognize the act as a reflection of their own struggles, insecurities, or misunderstandings. This mental shift does not excuse poor behavior, but provides a buffer that prevents unnecessary emotional turmoil. Another critical aspect of choosing anger or calm lies in self-awareness. Anger often manifests physically: tension in the shoulders, a tightening of the chest, a quickened heartbeat. By attuning ourselves to these early signs, we gain the opportunity to pause before our emotions dictate our actions. Techniques such as deep breathing, brief mindfulness exercises, or even mentally counting to 10 are not merely tools for delay. They are tools for transformation. Each pause creates a space in which reason, empathy, and wisdom can enter, allowing us to respond in a measured, conscious way rather than react impulsively. Over time, this practice strengthens the mind, building resilience against external provocations and gradually rewiring habitual patterns of irritation. Moreover, understanding the cost of anger reinforces the decision to maintain composure. Every time we give in to frustration or resentment, we expend energy, cloud our judgment, and risk damaging relationships. Anger may feel justified in the moment, but its consequences ripple far beyond the immediate context. By choosing not to engage in reactive anger, we protect our energy, preserve our clarity, and maintain the dignity of our interactions. This approach is not about suppressing emotions, but about mastering them, acknowledging the presence of anger without letting it dominate our behavior. It is a subtle yet profound empowerment, one that allows us to navigate life with intentionality and grace. Finally, cultivating a mindset that prioritizes calm over anger requires consistent reflection. Each situation that triggers irritation becomes an opportunity to practice patience, understanding, and control. With repeated conscious effort, we train our minds to respond from a place of stability rather than chaos, transforming what was once a reactive habit into a deliberate choice. The realization that anger is optional, not mandatory, is liberating. It allows us to rise above temporary provocations and maintain inner peace no matter the circumstances. By embracing this understanding, we unlock the ability to interact with the world from a place of strength, clarity, and unwavering composure, turning even challenging moments into opportunities for growth and mastery of the self. Perspective is one of the most powerful tools in mastering our emotional responses, yet it is often overlooked in the heat of the moment. Life has a natural tendency to challenge us with situations that test our patience, push our boundaries, and provoke emotional reactions. When someone behaves in a way that irritates us, or when circumstances do not unfold as we desire, our initial response is often frustration or anger. However, the lens through which we view these events dramatically shapes the intensity and duration of our emotions. By consciously shifting perspective, we can transform challenges into opportunities, discomfort into learning, and irritations into moments of growth. It is not the events themselves, but the meaning we assign to them that dictates our emotional state. A minor inconvenience, when magnified through a lens of impatience, can become a source of significant distress. The same event, seen from a broader viewpoint, may appear trivial, even insignificant, in the grand narrative of life. One practical approach to shifting perspective is temporal thinking, asking ourselves whether the current situation will hold importance in the near or distant future. Will this problem matter tomorrow, next week, or next year? Often the answer is no, and recognizing this truth provides an immediate sense of relief. By placing events on a timeline, we create psychological distance that diminishes the intensity of our immediate reactions. Small slights, minor disagreements, and momentary frustrations lose their grip over our emotions when we view them through the lens of time. This practice not only reduces unnecessary suffering, but also cultivates resilience, enabling us to face future challenges with a steadier mind and a calmer heart. Perspective also involves understanding that everyone operates from their own unique worldview, shaped by experiences, values, and circumstances that are entirely distinct from our own. When someone acts in a way that seems unreasonable or hurtful, it is often a reflection of their internal state rather than a deliberate attack on us. By recognizing this, we depersonalize the situation and free ourselves from the burden of unnecessary emotional reactivity. Developing this understanding requires empathy, the ability to step into another person's shoes and appreciate the complexities that drive their behavior. When we approach interactions with this mindset, anger loses its immediacy, replaced instead by curiosity, patience, and even compassion. Another important dimension of perspective is reframing challenges as opportunities for growth. Every frustrating interaction or difficult circumstance contains a lesson, whether it is an opportunity to practice patience, to refine communication skills, or to strengthen emotional resilience. By asking, "What can I learn from this?" we shift the focus from external irritations to internal development. This shift is not only intellectually empowering, but also emotionally liberating. It allows us to remain centered, regardless of the external environment, and to respond with intention rather than reaction. Life's challenges become mirrors reflecting areas where we can expand our self-awareness and strengthen our character, turning potential triggers into catalysts for personal growth. Cultivating perspective is a continuous practice that requires mindfulness and deliberate effort. It demands the habit of pausing before reacting, of examining situations from multiple angles, and of reminding ourselves of the broader picture. Over time, this mental discipline rewires the way we respond to life, creating a resilient mind that is less susceptible to anger and frustration. By consistently applying perspective, we transform our experience of the world, reducing unnecessary suffering and enhancing emotional clarity. This approach empowers us to navigate life with equanimity, to maintain inner peace amid external chaos, and to approach every interaction with measured, calm, and deliberate choice. Empathy is one of the most transformative qualities we can cultivate, particularly when it comes to managing our emotional responses to others. Often, anger arises not simply from what someone does or says, but from the way we interpret their actions. When someone behaves rudely, speaks harshly, or criticizes us, the instinctive reaction is to take it personally and feel provoked. Yet, empathy allows us to step outside our immediate emotional response and understand the broader context behind another person's behavior. By recognizing that everyone is carrying their own struggles, insecurities, and emotional burdens, we begin to see their actions not as deliberate attacks against us, but as reflections of their own inner state. This shift in perception fundamentally changes the way we experience interactions, transforming potential sources of irritation into opportunities for understanding and connection. Developing empathy begins with the simple yet profound practice of imagining life from another person's perspective. When confronted with negativity, instead of reacting defensively, we can ask ourselves what might be driving this behavior. Perhaps the individual is stressed, fearful, or dealing with personal challenges that are invisible to us. By considering these possibilities, we create a mental buffer that softens our immediate reaction. This does not mean excusing inappropriate behavior or compromising our own boundaries. It simply means recognizing that their actions are more about their internal world than ours. Such a mindset frees us from the unnecessary burden of taking things personally and allows us to respond with measured calm rather than impulsive anger. Empathy also enhances emotional intelligence, a critical factor in maintaining composure in challenging situations. When we can identify the emotions underlying someone else's behavior, we gain the ability to navigate interactions with insight and tact. For instance, a colleague's harsh critique may initially feel like an attack, but when viewed through an empathetic lens, it could be an expression of their own pressure or frustration. By understanding this, we avoid the trap of escalating conflict and instead respond thoughtfully, turning potentially tense situations into constructive exchanges. Empathy thus serves as a bridge, connecting us to others in a way that reduces friction and fosters harmonious relationships. Another aspect of empathy is self-reflection. When we observe the struggles and imperfections of others, we are reminded of our own human vulnerabilities and limitations. This awareness cultivates humility and patience, allowing us to approach interactions without judgment or immediate irritation. The more we internalize the idea that everyone is navigating their own challenges, the less likely we are to be disturbed by minor slights or perceived offenses. Our inner equilibrium becomes less dependent on external behavior and more anchored in understanding, compassion, and awareness. Cultivating empathy is an ongoing practice that requires conscious attention and repeated effort. It involves actively listening, withholding premature judgment, and consciously shifting focus from our own ego-driven interpretations to a broader understanding of human behavior. Over time, this practice reshapes our emotional landscape, enabling us to maintain serenity even when others act in ways that might previously have triggered anger. By seeing the person behind the behavior, we transform irritation into insight, frustration into patience, and conflict into an opportunity for connection and growth. Empathy also aligns with a deeper sense of purpose and personal development. When we consistently apply empathetic thinking, we strengthen our ability to respond rather than react, to influence rather than control, and to cultivate peace rather than chaos. It becomes a guiding principle that informs every interaction, ensuring that our emotional state remains self-directed rather than reactive to the external world. Through empathy, we discover a profound truth. Our peace is not dependent on how others behave, but on how we choose to perceive, understand, and respond to their behavior. This realization is both empowering and liberating, giving us the tools to navigate life with composure, clarity, and a deep sense of human connection. The ability to pause and breathe before reacting is one of the most powerful skills for maintaining emotional control. In moments of provocation, our minds often rush into automatic responses driven by instinct rather than conscious thought. This impulsive reaction can escalate situations, create misunderstandings, and intensify emotions that are otherwise manageable. Learning to create a pause, even for a few seconds, allows the mind to step out of the immediate reactionary loop and regain clarity. It transforms a potentially explosive moment into an opportunity for thoughtful response, providing space for reason, perspective, and emotional balance to emerge. The act of pausing is not a sign of weakness or avoidance. It is a deliberate choice that reflects strength, discipline, and self-mastery. Breathing deeply is a simple yet profound method to initiate this pause. When confronted with stress or irritation, the body enters a state of heightened alertness. Heart rate increases, muscles tighten, and the mind becomes fixated on the perceived threat. Conscious breathing interrupts this physiological reaction by signaling to the brain that it is safe to slow down, that there is time to assess before responding. By focusing on the breath, we anchor ourselves in the present moment, reducing the intensity of reactive emotions and allowing rational thought to take precedence. Even a few deliberate deep breaths can shift the emotional state from tension and anger to calm and clarity, creating the foundation for a measured response rather than a reflexive outburst. The pause also serves as a mental reset, creating an opportunity to evaluate the situation objectively. During this brief interval, we can ask ourselves critical questions. Is my reaction proportionate to the situation? What is the most constructive way to respond? Will this matter in the long term? By consciously engaging the rational mind, we prevent temporary emotions from dictating permanent actions. This process of reflection strengthens self-awareness and develops the capacity to respond intentionally rather than impulsively. Over time, this practice becomes habitual, allowing the mind to maintain composure even in challenging or provocative circumstances. Mindfulness techniques further enhance the effectiveness of the pause. By observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment, we create a space between stimulus and response. This mental space is where true choice exists. The choice to act in alignment with our values rather than reacting purely from emotion. Mindfulness also cultivates an understanding that emotions are transient. Irritation, frustration, or anger will rise and fall if we do not feed them with immediate reaction. By training the mind to observe without attachment, we reduce the likelihood of being swept away by emotional turbulence and maintain a grounded sense of inner calm. In addition, the pause allows us to consider the perspective of others, increasing empathy and reducing conflict. When we refrain from immediate reaction, we give ourselves time to understand the context behind someone else's behavior. Perhaps the individual is experiencing stress, pressure, or frustration unrelated to us. This recognition tempers our initial emotional response and allows for a more measured, compassionate reaction. By integrating both self-regulation and understanding of others into the pause, we transform potential moments of conflict into opportunities for constructive dialogue, mutual understanding, and stronger relationships. Finally, cultivating the ability to pause and breathe before responding builds long-term emotional resilience. Each time we successfully interrupt an automatic reaction, we reinforce neural pathways that favor calm, rational, and intentional behavior over impulsive reactivity. This consistent practice strengthens our capacity to navigate life's challenges with composure, allowing us to maintain our inner equilibrium even in the face of provocation. Over time, the simple act of pausing becomes second nature, a protective mechanism that preserves our peace, enhances our decision-making, and fosters meaningful, harmonious interactions with those around us. Strengthening the inner world is one of the most profound ways to maintain emotional stability and resist being disturbed by external negativity. Our inner world, the thoughts we cultivate, the attitudes we nurture, and the emotional habits we develop, forms the foundation of how we experience life. When this internal landscape is rich in positivity, gratitude, and resilience, external provocations lose their power over us. Conversely, when the inner world is neglected, fragile, or dominated by negative thinking, even minor irritations can trigger disproportionate emotional reactions. Developing a strong, balanced, and mindful inner life is therefore not a luxury, it is an essential practice for achieving lasting calm and emotional sovereignty. A key element in strengthening the inner world is the conscious cultivation of gratitude. Gratitude shifts the focus from what is lacking or wrong to what is abundant and right in our lives. It allows us to see the positive aspects of every situation, the lessons hidden in challenges, and the small blessings often overlooked in the rush of daily life. By regularly acknowledging what we are grateful for, we create a mental environment where negativity struggles to gain traction. This practice does not negate difficulties or challenges, but equips the mind with resilience, making it less reactive to external disturbances. Gratitude becomes a lens through which we view the world, transforming minor provocations into inconsequential events rather than sources of ongoing frustration. Another aspect of nurturing the inner world is the deliberate cultivation of positive self-talk and constructive thought patterns. The mind tends to magnify criticism, perceive threats, and dwell on perceived slights unless trained otherwise. By consciously directing thoughts toward encouragement, understanding, and solution-oriented reflection, we reprogram habitual reactions that often lead to anger or agitation. This inner dialogue strengthens self-confidence and emotional intelligence, allowing us to approach interactions with composure, clarity, and purpose. Positive internal narratives provide stability, so external chaos does not penetrate or destabilize our emotional equilibrium. Mindfulness and meditation are powerful tools for fortifying the inner world. These practices enhance awareness of our thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. They teach the ability to observe emotional impulses objectively, recognize the triggers behind reactions, and respond with intentionality rather than instinct. Meditation, even for a few minutes daily, builds mental resilience, sharpens focus, and nurtures a calm, centered state of mind. By investing in this internal discipline, we cultivate a sense of inner sanctuary, a space that remains untouched by negativity, conflict, or provocation. Furthermore, strengthening the inner world involves aligning our actions and choices with our values and purpose. When we live intentionally, guided by principles and goals, external opinions and provocations lose significance. The approval or disapproval of others no longer dictates our emotional state, because our self-worth is grounded in internal alignment rather than external validation. This internal compass provides stability, allowing us to navigate challenges with confidence, self-respect, and serenity. Finally, strengthening the inner world is a continuous process of personal growth. Each challenge, confrontation, or moment of irritation becomes an opportunity to reinforce resilience, practice patience, and deepen self-awareness. By consistently investing in our mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, we create a protective environment within ourselves. External negativity may still exist, but it no longer has the power to disturb us. The stronger and more balanced our inner world becomes, the more we experience life from a place of clarity, calm, and joy, responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively, and maintaining a state of peace that is independent of the external environment. Responding rather than reacting is the ultimate expression of emotional mastery and personal power. Life continuously presents situations that can trigger frustration, anger, or irritation, but the difference between reacting and responding lies in conscious choice. Reaction is immediate, instinctive, and often fueled by emotion, whereas response is deliberate, measured, and guided by awareness. When we allow ourselves to react impulsively, we hand over control of our emotional state to the circumstances or to the actions of others. In contrast, choosing to respond thoughtfully demonstrates self-discipline and maturity, allowing us to maintain composure even when provoked, and to navigate challenging situations with clarity and effectiveness. The first step in cultivating the ability to respond is awareness of the triggers that typically provoke us. Every individual has specific patterns, words, actions, or situations that spark strong emotional reactions. By identifying these triggers, we create the possibility of intervening before automatic responses take over. Awareness alone, however, is not sufficient. It must be coupled with a conscious pause. This brief moment of reflection, even if only a few seconds, provides the critical space in which reason, empathy, and perspective can guide our behavior. By consistently practicing this pause, we gradually shift from reactive patterns to a mode of deliberate response, where our actions are determined by wisdom rather than impulse. Responding thoughtfully also requires perspective. When faced with criticism, provocation, or unexpected challenges, it is essential to evaluate the situation in a broader context. Will this matter in the long term? What is the intention behind the other person's behavior? How can I act in a way that aligns with my values and preserves my peace? By asking these questions, we avoid being swept away by immediate emotions and instead navigate the situation strategically and calmly. This approach transforms potential conflict into an opportunity for constructive dialogue, mutual understanding, or personal growth, rather than a source of regret or escalation. Empathy plays a critical role in the process of responding. Understanding that every individual acts from their own experiences, fears, and limitations allows us to depersonalize their behavior and reduce the emotional intensity of the moment. When we recognize that negative behavior often reflects internal struggles rather than a direct attack on us, we gain the ability to respond with patience and compassion. This does not mean tolerating abuse or compromising boundaries, but rather approaching interactions with discernment and emotional intelligence, choosing actions that preserve harmony and respect for all parties involved. Another essential element is focusing on solutions rather than dwelling on the problem. Reaction tends to magnify conflict by fixating on blame, injustice, or perceived slights. Response, in contrast, channels energy toward constructive outcomes. It emphasizes practical steps, communication, and problem solving, turning potentially disruptive moments into productive opportunities. This proactive mindset strengthens resilience, enhances decision-making, and fosters a sense of control over one's life and emotions, even in unpredictable circumstances. Developing the ability to respond thoughtfully requires ongoing practice and self-reflection. Each challenging situation becomes a laboratory for honing this skill, offering lessons in patience, clarity, and emotional regulation. Over time, responding rather than reacting becomes habitual, a defining feature of a composed and empowered individual. The mind grows stronger, more resilient, and less susceptible to the provocation of external events, enabling a consistent state of inner calm and stability regardless of external pressures. Responding, instead of reacting, also cultivates lasting respect and influence. People naturally gravitate toward those who demonstrate self-control, clarity, and thoughtfulness in challenging circumstances. By choosing measured responses, we model emotional intelligence, inspire trust, and create environments where communication and cooperation thrive. This ability not only preserves our peace, but also strengthens relationships and opens doors to opportunities that reactive behavior would otherwise close, demonstrating that the power of response extends beyond personal equilibrium to meaningful impact on the world around us. So I want to leave you with this thought. Life will never stop throwing challenges at you. People will never stop testing your patience. But your mind is yours alone. Guard it, cherish it, and let it shine with unwavering peace. Choose calm over chaos. Choose understanding over irritation. And watch as your world transforms into a haven of joy. Thank you.